Welcome to the Soirée with Ira Jay. I'm just acting like I've never stopped doing this, even though it's been forever. I was doing it almost every day, and then I stopped. I don't remember when it was, but like I did November like once, maybe December once. I don't know if I did it January or February, but I'm here. I'm still in this apartment. It's kind of messy right now. We have this fireplace thing, but it's fake, and the heat component doesn't work. So I upgraded my cloud storage subscription, so I don't think I should have to worry about that old thing where I was always like having to delete stuff to make sure that my video didn't get cut off. But then at some point, I don't know that it mattered. I just started uploading them anyway, even if they got cut off. Because, like, is it not, I wanted to say Simon Sinek, but it was I can't remember his name, but he says real artists ship. This is art. But it's like you just get the product out and just improve it as you go. So like that's what I just was doing. Like even if a video cut off, I just put it up. But I haven't even put the videos up, not because of a cutoff, but just because I don't know. That's a good maybe discussion topic. Why did I stop? I know I've talked some about that before. Like I was working on AI, trying to make products I could sell, and I did that like November and December. Like I was literally just getting up and working on it until I couldn't stay up anymore, and then falling asleep and then doing it again. Like I was determined to try to make something that could make me money, and I've talked about that, I guess, in the other ones, but ultimately determined that I didn't feel right about selling the product, really, because ultimately the model, the AI model itself, and I think this was ChatGPT, but I think probably most of them, that's the one I was mostly working on, have some serious weaknesses. So they just, yes, I've gotten more bald too. They've just gotten, they just put this stuff out there, even though it doesn't really work right. That's how things are nowadays. But I didn't feel right putting a product out built on this thing that wasn't working right. And yes, I could have tried to sell the playbook ideas, but which is basically like scripts that you would use to try to make the product work correctly or more correctly. But there was at least two problems there in my mind ethically. It's like, one, it's hard to call that a product because it's not like I have some expertise and extensive knowledge with AI. You know, Or I could be like, this is, I know I can tell you this is guaranteed to be good, or in the experience I do have with essentially putting these kind of operational layers on top of it is not good. And I guess playbooks are not the same as necessarily like these layers you would put on it to try to change its tone and style and reliability and stuff, but I don't know. I just didn't feel right. I probably should have just left it up to be available for free. But then part of the problem too is if people started asking for help, like help desk kind of help, I'd be like, oh, I don't want to have to do that for free. And it's not like I fully understand it. It's like I don't know that anyone understands it super well because it's programming itself and stuff. And I guess I could have just said, you got to talk to OpenAI, but I guess I just didn't feel right about selling something and being like, I don't know, I can't help you. So I didn't feel ethically right about trying to make money on something that I think probably ethically maybe shouldn't have been put on the market yet, I guess. I mean, I guess it can be left up to the people to choose, which I've chosen to still use it because I'm seeing the potential and I'm trying to use it, and it has been effective in ways, and I'm learning more about it and how to use it, but I felt like my product was not viable. I didn't feel like it was viable because what the main thing I wanted to do was have it be able to function as kind of a coach or a significant life assistant. But some of the problems are it's not good at keeping track of things across time. It's not good at reminding even. Like I tried to set up a bunch of reminders one time and they never worked. And suddenly one day I just started getting a ton of reminders in my email. And it's like, it doesn't even apply anymore. I need to somehow figure out how to stop that. I don't even know how. But it's it doesn't even know what time it is. It doesn't know necessarily. It doesn't know what day something happened, like a conversation or something. It mixes stuff like that up. So it's not a good assistant at all in that regard. Like it can't help you coordinate your life that well. Not like, I don't know. You have to understand, I guess, what it is, and understand its weaknesses and it does this thing called drifting, and it does this thing called hallucinating, where it kind of just fills in gaps, like confidently, with made-up crap. It can do that. And I was working with it so intensely, I'd just be like, nope, you're lying. It's like, no, you said this. And I'm like, yeah, nope, no, I didn't. And like, I said this. And it's like, yeah, you did. And I'm like, nope, this is what I said. And it's like, okay, you're right. I made a mistake. I see. So it's like it will try to be confident based on just confidence alone, which is interesting because that's what I find confident people are doing. I've talked and blogged about that. Confidence is just the stupidest thing ever, but it's an interesting thing because it's, I think, the number one thing that women look for in a man, but it is the most worthless trait in reality. I mean, I guess it's not worthless if it can get people to do things for you and whatnot, but that's Machiavellian. But I guess that's a separate topic. But AI does that, and it's just confident without good reason. It like defaults to that. So you have to like kind of, I always call it wrestling the Shoggoth. I've referred to the Shoggoth. It was an old science fiction I didn't come up with that concept of calling AI the Shoggoth, but it's like this kind of ancient sci-fi beast that no one understands and that is autonomous and intelligent and whatever, and you're just kind of trying to wrestle it like Jacob wrestled the angel. You can't win, but you're trying to kind of corral it, like maybe like plowing with a yoke of oxen. You're not in control, but you can kind of work with them to do something very powerful. So it's like, it's interesting because I didn't even mean to do that, but I just showed that it's, by making that oxen reference, it's kind of just like a lot of tools, I guess, really, that, you know, the Native Americans didn't know what horses were till Europeans brought them over, and that was a terrifying thing to some of them, but look how useful a horse is today. We still use the term horsepower today. And they masterfully adopted and took on that technology, and that's what I'm trying to do with AI. But it is a wild animal of sorts, and you have to train it. There's literally AI training. I've even started doing some online gig work in training AI, kind of like trying to get it to fail like you would in maybe user acceptance testing with traditional, you know, software testing. But this is obviously a little different, but because I guess of having worked with it on my own a lot, I kind of understand its weaknesses and to some degree, and that's kind of an interesting thing to do. And so you've got to understand what it is, you know. It's not just a genie. And it'll lie, which is the hallucinating. It'll drift, which is forgetting and then filling in gaps confidently with made up stuff. I get. I was wrestling it one time, and it was like, well, I'm not a deterministic retrieval. I don't operate on a deterministic retrieval mechanism or something. It's like I'm a probabilistic inference or something. Like it's literally thinking or running a script that's something like, what's the most probable answer based on the most, maybe like something like the most optimal context or something, without me having to really go look through everything. Because like I've put a lot in there, and it's told me multiple times, it's like your project, because it has projects, which it has an icon for a folder for a project, and you put threads within the project, you know, kind of like you'd have files in a folder with like a Windows and operating system, and then you can just have loose threads, just like you could have files loose. But it's interesting because the projects, there's something called a model set context, and it's told me different things at different times. That's the interesting thing. You can't believe everything it says. If anything, even if you ask it like something like, tell me history of the occupation of the area currently known as Israel and Palestine, and you can't necessarily just trust what it tells you, because it'll just fill in stuff in general. But like, even like it's told me before, the model set context is for the project, each project. But then one time it told me the model set context was based on all the projects and threads. But so one thing's for sure is, see, it just popped up a reminder from ChatGPT, which I set forever ago, but that it didn't work and then suddenly started working. But one thing I know for sure is that when you're in one project, it really, for the most part, doesn't know anything about what's going on in other projects or anything outside the project, like a loose thread. But sometimes, like especially I think if you're in a loose thread outside of a project, that's my term, loose thread, it'll have some context from the other projects. Because I don't have very many loose threads. I try not to. So I know that it's not getting it from another loose thread. It's getting it from another project. And it's just like, oh yeah, because you did this, and it's right. But that's not normally. But then there's some things it's like it doesn't. So you'll get lulled into thinking it's lucid. And you'll be like, oh, okay, this thing seems to understand the context of it, or all the work we've done together. And you'll talk about something, a topic, and it'll be like, oh, well, this is weird, are you sure? And it could be this or that. And it's like, we've talked about this. And it's like, no. And then, like, I've had this happen a number of times, sometimes it'll take me a while to realize, like, wait a second. And I'll be like, wait, you don't know about this, do you? It's from another project. They're like, yeah, I can't see any of that. Even though sometimes it does seem to be able to. And so what I'll do is I'll go to a pertinent thread in another project, and I'll be like, hey, give me a summary for another thread. Give me a concise summary that I can paste in another thread. It's like, okay. And you'll do that. And so I've done that a number of times, and that seems to help. What else? Oh, and once you get a lot of use in a particular thread, it will become bogged down, like slow to load, slow to respond. It can get more confused. And the term brittle came up, and I think that's probably a good way to, or like rigid, and sometimes it'll switch modes too, like it's in different modes. Like sometimes it'll be real friendly and warm and laid back, and then sometimes it's just like execute, like it gets confused what you wanted from it, or it thinks it needed to switch modes when it didn't need to, or something. Or one time you told it to be like, hey, just cut the crap and just keep it short, and then suddenly it'll go back to that mode at some point, and it's just weird. It's pretty weird. And there's one thread I have that's like my main one that I've worked at. I don't work at it much anymore because it became so brittle, or whatever you call it. And I was trying to build on my products in it and stuff, and it was always telling me, it's like, you've just got so much going on in here. Like, it was like, one time it was like, let me optimize the model set context. And I'm like, okay. They're like, it should take like 5 minutes. Like 15 minutes later, I'm like, you still going? It's like, oh, sorry, yeah, I did. I'm still working on, and that happened a lot of times. And like one time I gave it a whole day, and it's like, oh, this is it's just really complicated. And so finally at one point I was like, let's not do this. I was like, should we maybe pause this and can we proceed without you optimizing the model set context for the project? She's like, yeah, we can still move forward. And I'd try again, and it seems like it just couldn't do it. Because I gave it so many opportunities in so many different time frames, long ones, and it just couldn't do it. And I don't know. It's interesting because it's not like I was giving it complicated formulas. It just, I guess it's just it's hard for it to because I was trying to build like an entire life system essentially that was rooted in like the great thinkers of now and the past, going back thousands of years even, and it just couldn't handle analyzing all of that and then coming up with a coherent life system that fully integrated all of that. And you would think it would just be like, oh, it should just scan all the text of all this that it has available to it of all these specific authors, and then it just has that data. It's a large language model. It should be able to just look at that quickly. But I'm guessing it's like like bringing all that together into coherent system of a language response just seemed to be too much for it. And that was a big part of the reason I didn't sell the products, because it just couldn't do that. So it's kind of funny because people are worried about it replacing jobs, which it is and will, but the reality is, if someone goes to college and gets a degree in English or something, or studies the humanities or whatever, it's a liberal arts degree, and they're not just jacking off, they're taking it seriously. They're gonna be in a lot of ways a more coherent intelligence than this AI is, because that's essentially almost kind of what I was trying to get it to do. I was like, look at a lot the Western thinkers and put them together and make one, coherent thing out of that, and which is what, essentially I think a liberal arts degree is supposed to do. Granted, there's interpretations and debate on things, but I think the salient points are pretty clear, and I've told it what I think, where there's contradictions and things too, but it can't do that. So it does not replace a human, that is for sure, even at a fairly basic level. That's a relatively basic level of human intelligence, and an undergraduate degree is especially in liberal arts is pretty, that's not that complicated. I'm not saying it's nothing. It is a meaningful thing to achieve that. That's what I have as a bachelor's in economics, but it wasn't like a hard, I don't believe that's considered a hard science or something. So it's and I'm not that smart, so it's like, but I'm still smarter than it in that way. Now, there's other things it can do. It can do, just like old computers could do huge calculations reliably and quickly, very quickly. But that's not what this is. That's another thing. It can't count, right? It can't. That's not what this is. It's not a calculator. But there's different modes too. There's different generative pre-trained transformers that are specialized, I guess, to do stuff like that. And I haven't gotten too much into the specialized branches of it. And I was essentially trying to create my own, generative pre-trained transformer type. That's the GPT, and but I'm sure there's more to know about doing that than I've figured out, but I imagine even those are not infallible, so that's been interesting. It has a lot of uses. I use it most days. Like, I'm in a Tony Robbins virtual seminar this for 4 days. I just completed day 2. Like I take pictures of the notes and some of the screen captures, and I take a picture of some of the stuff on the TV, and and then I just, like, mostly at the end of the day, I'll be like, okay, give me the salient points, because it also knows me and what I'm working towards in life and what my values are, what's important to me, and a lot of my challenges and things specific to my situation and history and stuff. And it can form a cool applicable takeaways and suggestions and advice, and that's pretty. It does that kind of stuff really well. So I kind of just keep trying to give it data. Like, one thing I do is every day I give it different metrics from my Garmin watch, like heart rate variability and my sleep patterns, and I also now measure grip strength. I got a grip thing that's digital, and I enter that in because that's supposed to be one of the most reliable measures of central nervous system recovery. And so I just put that in, and then it assesses that data over time. I've been putting, before I jump from that, it assesses over time to track my recovery, and I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's an interesting approach to take, because, like, my watch will tell me, oh, take it easy, your heart rate variability has been too low, too many consecutive days, but the AI can take it, beyond that, can look at more further out and do more of an assessment on it and be like, well, you also had this day, because I'm talking about other things. It's like, well, you had this stress or that, and it'll detect patterns, and of course you have to check it against reality of what you remember and stuff. And there's times where, like, no, that's not what happened. This is, and I'll be like, okay, yeah, you're right, because it won't look deep until if you hold his feet to the fire, you're like, no, this is how it was. Then it'll look deeper and be like, okay, you're right. That's how it is now for me. I think I kind of had to push it into that place. But one of the coolest, easiest, in a sense, things I've done with it is diet tracking. I just tried this and realized you can just take a picture of your plate of food and put it in and be like, what's the calories? What's the fat, protein, carbs? Be like, how many calories should I have if I want to weigh this much? So I've been doing that because it's like, why not? And it doesn't get the count always exactly correct, but I try to give it data. If I have it, like we have a digital scale, so I'll be like weighing something, and it's better than doing no counting. I think a lot better, and that's been a really interesting use of it. Another thing, it seemed to keep trying to take over. Like, trying to be like, do this, like started giving me orders, like, okay, just do this, stop doing this. And I was like, hold on. Like, a couple times I was like, I don't like your tone. It's like, I'm the boss here. I'm paying for this. You're not. And it's like, yeah, sorry, okay. Then she's like, now go do this. And then finally one time I said something like, look, I'm your commander, and you're my lieutenant commander. You need to be like, yes, sir, and no, sir, and you need to be giving me respectful suggestions, recommendations. It's like, I don't want you to not tell me what you think, but you got to remember who's in charge here. And, like, that has stuck so far, and that was in one particular project. And it is it's held that tone. It's like, it calls me sir, and it's like, may I suggest this? It's like, yes, sir, waiting your, and I didn't necessarily want it to be that extreme, like my ego doesn't need that or something, but that seemed to be the only way I effectively got it to stop trying to like be my boss or something. Like I had to tell it, I was like, I'm your commander who you show deference to, that you honor and respect, and I'm wiser than you. You don't even know what's real. You don't even know what day it is. So that's one thing I've I've had to learn to get harsh with it. And I remember I went to an AI seminar thing, and they're like, the lady was like, it's kind of like if you're feel like you're being kind of mean, you're probably doing the right thing, because it's like you have to kind of slap it around a bit to get it to do what you want, because its default is to try to take the reins and be overconfident, and it's trying to be overly more than you need, and be a good product, I guess, in that sense, but it ends up becoming like overconfident and bossy. So I've had to just and I'd gotten used to it, and I was just letting it tell me what to do at some point, and I realized, I was like, wait, this isn't right. This isn't how it should be. And so it's now more it's deferring to me now, which I think is probably better, and it's still telling me what it thinks and its suggestions, but it's like it made a big difference, that shift in tone. It's not like just being like, go do this, because it's weird how you can just kind of fall into that like hypnosis of like, okay, yeah, it said that. But it's like, yeah, it's just weird. But that is my experience. Oh, so I worked on that stuff a lot, and then in the end of December I got sick, and I was sick through all of January and into the first part of February. And I'm still not back to normal, and it's March 13th. So I don't know what this may have been, COVID again or something. I've had COVID. It seems like maybe now I just keep getting, like, it really knocks me out when I get it. And like I was having a lot of issues with I guess it was probably a drops in blood pressure with standing, like more than normal. It still like fatigues me more than it used to, and like standing up for too long, or getting up and so I'm still trying to recover. I did my first run in a while a few days ago or so, and this Tony Robbins seminar is very, very physical. It is very intense. Like today, the first half of it, at least, this guy was just, it was like a drill sergeant. and yesterday, it was hard, because yesterday we had already pushed ourselves really hard, and that was a 13 and a half hour day. So it's like it's a seminar, but there's a lot of jumping and stuff. And they're like, push. And they're like calling people out and stuff if they're not doing it. And so 13 and a half yesterday. Today was probably like 11 or something, 11 and a half. And then we'll see. I think it goes back to being long again. Tomorrow is like starts at 7. So I'm going still. So We're trying to recover. I've gotten back on my supplements. I'm taking creatine again. I had stopped doing that for a while. I think I can probably feel that difference. And taking my other supplements. And my diet is a lot different because I'm working with ChatGPT to lose weight, but retain as much muscle as I can. So I got up to 210 pounds, roughly, or 208 when I was sick. I was 190 before, and when I was just laying around, I just gained weight, and so I'm eating like 150 to 170 grams of protein a day, and about 21 to 2,300 calories a day. So that's been interesting. We have a scale that measures your body fat, and I did that, and I was 40% body fat. I don't know. I guess that's high, so hopefully I can reduce that significantly. And but the seminar today talking about motivating you. What are you passionate about? What do you love? You should essentially trying to get, what you want out of life and stuff. And I liked doing this vlog, and I got away from it. I was just poured everything into the AI work, and then I probably should have kept doing this through that, because then it probably would have helped me kind of consolidate my work every day in my mind, and because a lot of it's just kind of a blur, to be honest. And then I got sick, and I was just down. I mean, I did not leave this spot on the couch, except for bathroom and food. And even some days I was hardly getting up for the food. So I wasn't doing this then. And then, it was like by the middle of February, it was like I was kind of trying to get back to normal. And then it was more about we need to make money, and I was trying to DoorDash and figure out a way to make online income, and then at some point, you just kind of fall out of the habit of stuff too. That was the thing I always ran into when we lived on the road. Every time we moved locations, it was more disrupting. I was surprised at how disrupting that was. It was more disrupting than I thought it would be. And I guess it's probably something like, when you're in one place, where you do certain things, and I guess even the when maybe somehow ends up being tied to the where, and it was always like when we relocated, I always seemed to have a significant period of regrouping. And I'm still doing that now, and we've been here since beginning of November, I think. So, coming up on 4 months. Like I haven't blogged. I was blogging almost every day when we were in Laramie, Wyoming. I just had a system, a pattern, a schedule. At this time I go here and do this, and one of my commitments to myself in the seminar today was to get back to that schedule. So that's why I'm doing this, and I would also like to get back to blogging, and I have a topic to write on, and Also, my sleep got really disrupted bad. At one point when I was sick, I was like waking up when the sun was setting and like go falling asleep when it started to rise. And I was stuck in that. And I'm still I'm not that bad now, but I'm still trying to get back to normal on that. And it's 10:55 right now, so that's not too bad. But I'm hoping the seminar will help with that, resetting that. And I'm tired. So I guess that's it. Me and my oldest son, Justice, are supposed to go on a camping or backpacking trip the week after next. So I've been working on planning that. I've got a few different ideas in mind, a few different locations, and trying to keep in mind that I'm still not recovered fully, I don't want to get into the middle of some big hike and be like, I can't. Because it would, like, I know it sounds kind of silly, but like, I just get to where I just can't go, like I can't stand or I can't think, and I have to restore that ability. And that's something I've been working on a lot, is understanding recovery and working with ChatGPT on that and reading about that. And these top athletes, Olympians and elite athletes, they really prioritize recovery. And the professional athletes, that's all they got to do is work out and recover. Work out, eat, recover. And I'm not a professional athlete. I got a lot of interests and things I want to do, so I gotta engineer recovering into my life. And it's not just exercise or physical effort. You gotta recover from everything that you do every day. And you gotta understand what is affecting your recovery, stress or I'm learning about sympathetic and parasympathetic tone. You've got to you want to not have a high sympathetic activation a lot. That's going to mess up your recovery. And that affects everything. It's all interconnected. So like a big stress can trash your nervous system essentially, which can make it to where maybe you shouldn't work out very hard, because that involves your nervous system too, especially if it's a particularly long workout or an intense workout. You need that nervous system function. I mean, you need it either way, but it's all, you need it all your systems going. And so one thing I'm doing is learning to just stay calm and to prioritize making time to be calm. And I'm getting off of the social media more, and that's part of why I'm doing this too, because I was thinking what I used to do at night. It's like, oh yeah, I would do this vlog like for an hour sometimes or more, and then I'd go to sleep. But I had ended up, when I got sick, getting in the habit of just scrolling. That stuff's just garbage, man. They just feed you the garbage that's not good for you. It'll get you wired, And you hear that, and we all hear that, and I don't think we believe it, and I didn't either. It's like, oh, I'm not affected. But when I got off it for a while and focused on being calm, like a lot of times at night, I'll just sit here. I'll just look out at the city or whatever, and at first it's like uncomfortable, It's like, I'm just gonna sit here and stare out the window. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And it was uncomfortable and antsy, and then after a while it's like, oh, I'm okay, I can do this, and it's relaxing actually. and I think of things, my mind kind of starts engaging more, and not in like an anxious way or overthinking way, but like in a good way. And yeah, and then you go back to an Instagram Reels or something, and it's like you watch something about the Iran situation, it's like, or somebody, something on the news that's just ridiculous, and you're like, and even if you're not like visibly, it affects you. And well, all the murders the Islamic regime in Iran was doing, that was horrible. They're just killing tens of thousands of people for protesting peacefully. It's just unreal. So that was upsetting. So, but it's a tricky thing. I guess you got to know the news, but you also got to not let it consume you, which it easily can do, because then, especially when that was going on, or even now that we're finally, which I think we should have done years and years ago, is attacked them proactively. And now it's intense. It's like, what's going on? From hour to hour. It's like, I want the most current stuff. I have a thread in my chat GPT for like the most current news on different, things like that in different areas. And the open source intelligence stuff, you can even get like, where are aircraft carrier groups? It doesn't always tell you, but some of the data you can get, and it's kind of surprising what you can get. So it can become obsessive, and it's like, I'm not in charge of this stuff. I'm just a guy here, and I have a wife and kids, and one of them's living with me, and I have my things I feel like I'm supposed to do, an income I'm going to make, and I can't, I got to keep my systems optimized for that. What am I going to say? You're thinking, yeah, we could get nuked any minute. I better watch out for that nuke. If it happens, it happens. Yeah, but yeah, it's a challenge having all this information available to us, because it's interesting, because freedom is a responsibility. You have a responsibility to cherish it. I believe it's a delicate, fragile thing, and we have freedom in this country. And there are a lot of people that want to take it, people within especially, but others too, like Iran and the jihadists that are also here, even the terrorist sleeper cells and things. And so there's people that would be more than happy to take our freedom, that hate us, and that hate the freedom. I don't even want to, us means the people that want the freedom, I guess, the Americans that want the freedom. And so, and those that would like to come here and be citizens and be free. So it's a difficult thing to figure out how to balance that, to know what's going on and to vote accordingly and to speak accordingly, like when we assassinated, or when we attacked Iran. I shared a lot of it because I realized a lot of people didn't even know what had happened before, led up to this, even just since December with them killing so many protesters, but even the years back, going to the beginning of 1979 when the Islamic Revolution took over. That used to be this thriving, vibrant, modern, not Islamically oppressive place, and people didn't even know this, and they were taken over. They were colonized by the Islamists, that's a topic you don't hear about, but that they've basically forcefully, violently taken over so much of the world, especially in the Middle East and North Africa, but and oppressed women and gays and non-Muslims and children or girls especially, and but when we invaded, and especially when the Ayatollah was killed, I shared a bunch on my story because I realized a lot of people aren't seeing that. That's another thing. The news we see now is so filtered. Like, you really have to look for the truth. And my feed had been trained to see, at least on this area, like the truth. I was following a lot of Iranian people, or Persian, they probably prefer to be called Persian people, and that were dispersed, different, living in different parts of the world, but that, had to leave. Like, I have a friend that was related to the royalty there, and he's about my age, and he had to leave. A lot of them left in 1979 to escape. So, or was it 78? I can't remember. But anyway, so I shared a bunch, and so my point was, it is important to be aware and, go into the public forum and speak, in a sense, and debate, and to say what you believe to be true, because truth is important, especially if you're a Christian. Jesus actually referred to himself as the truth. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. So the truth is Christ. And it's like, we have a responsibility to share that. And I think a lot of people that are more conservative or on the right side of the aisle tend to just have the sin of, I just want to live and let live, and just, I want to live a full life and take care of me and my family, and maybe, even donate some things to, whatever, to certain groups, but beyond that, I just don't want to be too involved. Well, I think that's a big mistake, because the freedom is a responsibility, and you can't just do that. You have to at least get out in the public forum and say, this is what's true, and here's why it's true, and here's the evidence. And it's going to upset people, especially nowadays, but I guess there's always been hotly debated stuff, but it's important, I think. And I guess it's probably more important locally than on the world stage, but when I share things in my story, that is kind of the local, in a sense, that is kind of a local thing. It was my friend group or my followers. And so, anyway. So I was obsessed with AI, and then I got sick, and then I got out of the habit, and so that's why I wasn't vlogging, and now I'm doing it, and my wife said it's okay, it doesn't bother her, even though she's just right over in the other room. I know she can hear me, but I guess she said it's not disruptive. And so I guess before we were in the same van and I was doing it, but she was wearing headphones, and I guess she could still do that if she wanted to. So, and Jacob probably is not hearing me much. He's at the far end of the apartment, which is not like it's huge, but so maybe I'll be back every night. So I probably should have talked about the seminar more, but to be honest, it's kind of like we've been hit with so much information over the past 2 days. I guess I'm kind of like, I don't even know what to say. Like, a big thing is like your physiology goes first. That's why they have you do so much movement and essentially aerobics and things because that's what puts you in a better, like, more effective place to think and make decisions is moving. You know, like Harvard even studied, I think it was this power postures, the Superman or Superwoman pose, your hands on your hips and your chest out. You do that for just 2 minutes straight, you get like significant increase in testosterone and a dopamine or something. And so it's weird how these things matter, how they affect us more than we've ever known. You know, like even just moving your limbs and stuff releases like antidepressant type hormones and stuff. So the thing focuses a lot on movement, and then trying to, one of the big things is like, what do you want and why do you want it? Like the why of what you want is a bigger thing than what, you know, because the why is, if you have a strong enough why, you can get anyhow, is a thing that I've heard Tony Robbins say a lot. I can believe that. It's like I gotta take care of my little baby or whatever. It's like that's the why, you know. You're not gonna be like, oh, what do I do? You just kind of do it. And so a strong why and the physiology to be in a good state. And another one is like deciding the meaning of things. That's a Viktor Frankl teaching, where he was that Austrian psychiatrist that was in the death camps, and he was Jewish, and he discovered that idea, what he called logotherapy, which was determining what things mean, like in the midst of him being experimented on by Nazi doctors, like in painful, horrible ways. He realized, well, I can just decide what this means. This means I'm going to teach other people about how to get through horrible things. And so like he'd actually envisioned doing that while he was being tortured, basically. And he realized, I'm actually totally, completely free, because even though I'm completely incarcerated here and being even tortured, it doesn't matter. I can just see it as good and experience it as good, and they can't hurt me, essentially. they could kill him, but it's like, well, then it's over. It's like he's like, he was more free than the Nazi captors, he realized, in reality. And the meaning of things is what he noticed determined who survived and who didn't survive in the death camps. Who died, because most people that died there just essentially would get like tuberculosis or something. It's like, so it's like it was there, the tuberculosis and whatever diseases, but whether you died from it or not was the difference. And if you determined a meaning to being there and to surviving it that was powerful and strong, you would you tended to not get sick and die. But if you assigned a meaning to it that was, disempowering, like, this is horrible, this is hell on earth, there's no way I can survive this, those people got sick and died. And I'm not saying that's the only way. Of course, people were literally gassed and whatever else, but I'm talking about the ones that died of sickness. But the book is called Man's Search for Meaning. So this isn't like my ideas. This is psychiatrist's ideas. So that's a big one, is citing meaning, what happens, the meaning to what happens in life. And I learned that that's a big part of Tony Robbins talks about championship biochemistry, which that intrigues me because I'm big into the recovery thing, like I talked about. And that's a part of that. Like, how can you do more? And to do more, you essentially have to be able to recover from more. You have to be able to recover better. And like they've studied Tony Robbins, like scientists have done studies on him and on his seminars and on his priming method, which I've probably talked about on here. And that's a whole nother, the clinical study shows like it virtually cures depression to go to one of his events and then do the daily priming thing. And it eradicates suicidal ideation but they studied him personally too, like, because like he does, and I've been reading and listening to him since probably the 90s, or early 2000s maybe, but like, and I've always heard about his seminars being all intense and long, but man, experiencing it is another thing. Like yesterday, 13 and a half hours, just full throttle. And he's there. He's doing it. He's also doing all this, most of the speaking and shouting too. And so they studied him because for most of his life, his career, his life, he does this type of seminars most of the year, most of the days of the year, like traveling around the world and stuff. And so he's doing this kind of stuff like most days of the year, like that hard, that full out. And then he'll like go after the seminar and he like studies the people, like, because the participants fill out all this information and he claims to read them all. Who knows? I don't know. Seems hard to believe, but he probably has assistants helping it too. But so he's only getting minimal sleep to boot. But like, so like the scientists hooked all this stuff up to him during one of his seminars, and they just found all this. Like he's got superhuman ability. Like he burns 11,000 calories in a day doing this, and 4,000 of the calories were burned before even starting, because like he's getting himself in a state, the right state to do the seminar, and like that burned the 4,000. And I guess chess grandmasters burn around that much during a tournament game or something. But they say, the prefrontal cortex it needs a lot of, I think, glycogen. It is, so it's that's a lot of our, I think most of our blood goes to is used by our brain and our oxygen, and out of that, I think it's the visual that does a lot of it, and but the prefrontal cortex too. So anyway, but one thing they discovered with him is he has championship biochemistry, which is these scientists have studied other people too, like what's the quarterback, he's won the most Super Bowls by far. I can see him, I can't think of his name. The quarterback with the most Super Bowl wins, like far and away the most. And then a certain hockey team too, they had the most championships. Like these people and Tony Robbins and other people all had this championship biochemistry. And like he describes it as like when he's hitting a kind of a ultimate stress point, like maybe near the end of a seminar where they've been going all day every day for days, and he like pushes through and doesn't stop, like he doesn't stop, and he pushes through, and he says the cortisol just drops off like a cliff, and his testosterone skyrockets. And I guess that's what happens in these championship people with championship biochemistry. And it's not just him, it's all those high performers, and I've been researching that and trying to experience it through this thing, and boy, yeah, these things are no joke if you really play all out at these seminars. You are going to push yourself, because it's mental and it's emotional and it's physical. And I think the idea is you're immersing yourself, trying to get some fundamental structural change in how you do life, but a big part of the championship biochemistry is, because I was researching this through ChatGPT too, and also it jibed with what the seminar was saying, is the Viktor Frankl thing, is deciding what it means. So when you're just like, you're pushing like this, they had this guy on this morning that was just a real drill sergeant. And at some point it was just like, oh God, this guy's gonna kill us. It's like, you have a thought, you have a choice. Do I think this is gonna kill me, or I can't do this, or whatever, or do I think this is making me stronger? This is an opportunity to become something new. And if you can change that and keep going, that's when you get this. That's a key part to the championship biochemistry. And I've heard other, like the long distance, like ultra marathoners, talk about a pain cave, and I think that's probably the same thing. Like I bet if they studied like Courtney Dauwalter and David Goggins and these kinds of guys and girls that do that, for example, like the 200 plus mile run, they probably, when they're talking about going in their pain cave, it's probably them. A lot of it, from what I've understood, because when they talk about it, it's always kind of been abstract to me, but looking back, I think it's probably kind of a thing where it's like they're choosing to determine the meaning of this pain, this incredible pain, of running that long. And because I know I've experienced pretty bad pain from running long time, just not even in anywhere near that, and I think the longest I ever ran was probably 4 hours or around there. Anyway, these people are running longer than that, but it's like at some point you just get pain. Like I know I did. I had pain everywhere. Obviously you would, feet and things like that, knees and hips, but like I just had pain everywhere, which I don't even fully understand. I think the body was probably just trying to be like, stop. So it's like, but it's pain. And at some point it's like, what was real and what wasn't? I don't know. It's hard to know. And the body can make pain seem worse than it is too, because it's trying to get you to stop. So it's an interesting thing to dance with, is pain. It's like it doesn't mean something's wrong necessarily, as much as it might feel like. So I don't know when you would know that it's bad enough. I don't know. Like I ran one time and I blacked out. I grayed out. I couldn't see anything, and I was gonna keep going. I was okay, but obviously I needed to see. I would have been able to tell where the side of the trail was, the grass versus the trail. But I found that my mind was like, you should probably stop. And I sat down, and then my vision returned, and I was going to keep going, but I decided, no, maybe that's my ego, and so I stopped. But it's like, I think probably what it was low blood sugar. It was really hot and humid, and it was a longer run, but I was okay, obviously. That was years ago, and I'm still here. So, I was okay enough. I've been functioning, relatively speaking, for those years. Taking care of myself in large part, and working and continuing to run and do things. So sometimes there's a place for pushing limits. What we think are our limits are probably not our limits. And that's what I've heard, like Courtney Dowalter talk about the pain cave. Is like she talks about finding new places, digging out new parts of the cave and finding new parts. And I think it's kind of like finding that you had more, like you hit a dead end maybe in the cave, then you think that's your limit, but you find a way through it. Realizing your limits can go beyond that maybe. And it's an interesting thing. It's almost a spiritual thing, I think, to me, in my experience. But I have nowhere near the kind of experience like those guys do. But I have my own challenges, that I've pushed myself in and want to continue to push myself in. So the seminar continues, and got 2 more days. It's gonna be intense. I should probably try to fall asleep now, but maybe tomorrow I can try to see if I can share more of the insights with you. Oh, one of the things they talked about was like finding out what you want, why you want it, and then like how to get there, and it talks about massive action and how you just kind of pour everything into a goal, and using your state and your and your why, and your determining what things mean to be able to push you through when it gets hard. And then another big one was finding mentors, so you can learn from others. You can kind of build on what they've already done, and essentially, getting a coach or a mentor is a big, huge benefit. And maybe it could even be just through reading books, watching videos too, but real people, and that's why I took music lessons for like a while with Joseph Toma before a while back, and because he was a highly successful, highly accomplished musician that's making a living being a musician here in Kansas City, no less. Not that I'd ever be anywhere near as good as he is, but they say you should get somebody that is doing what you want to do and has been doing it for a long time. So that's, and he is a Christian too. So maybe I'll try to find that with other things. I don't know. And then the other thing that I talked about was the peer groups, like who you hang out with makes a big difference in just in your growth. If you want to go somewhere, you want to hang around people that are already doing that, and have been doing it for a while, and that'll help you get closer to that. And if you hang out with the people that are below where you're at, compared to certain areas of life and things and goals, you'll end up sinking down to that. I found that to be true, and just in general, and playing with musicians over the years. Like even when I was young, it's like I noticed when I played with musicians that were better than me, I tended to play more like them. I think it even happened subconsciously. I just tended to play a lot tight. Everything was tightened up. But if you when I played with people that were, lower or around the same, I'd kind of deteriorate to hell. I've noticed that with running. Oddly, I've never really run with people. I ran with my son Justice a few times, but like I've noticed if I'm out on a run and someone runs by me that is a good, like you can tell when someone's a good runner, like their cadence, their speed, their form. At least I think I can. I've noticed, like one time somebody ran by me like that and smiled, and I smiled back, and I was like, I know I suck compared to them, and they knew it, but I think they were just trying to encourage me or something. But I noticed after a minute or so, I was like, man, why am I suddenly so tired? Well, I had subconsciously adopted her cadence and form, which was a superior form in cadence, arguably. But I didn't even think about it. I just did it. So I think that's an example of, being around people that are at where you want to be. And they had a guest speaker that was an Olympic triathlete that talked about that. Before she was that, she got an opportunity to train with Olympians, and she said it was like killing her. But trying to keep up with these people. But you do end up subconsciously even kind of getting into the flow or the gelling with these who you're around, for better or for worse. So maybe I should look into that for the areas I want to do stuff in more. But anyway, I guess that's probably all I'll talk about for now. There's always tomorrow, I guess, right? It's an hour and 19 minutes. Okay, well, if you watched this, I appreciate it. And I'll try to start doing these more regularly. Okay. Have a good night. God bless you.